Very good morning to all. Dear student, welcome back to the biology class. So today in the biology class we will continue the chapter 16, that is management of natural resources. In last class we have done some points, we learned something about the management of natural resources. Now in today's class we will continue the lesson. So before starting our classes, please be ready with your book. Let's continue from the last topic. So today our topic is industrialists have a major vested interest in forest resources. They consider the forest as merely a source of raw materials for their industry. So industrialists, what they are thinking, forest is the main point for getting the raw materials for their industries. Some of the major industries which are based on forest products are timber industry, paper manufacturing industry, lac industry and sports equipment industry. In fact, most of the deforestation is caused by industrial needs. So these industries are completely based on the forest products. They are taking a raw material from the forest and they made something from that and they are selling that. Okay. So due to these industries, the most of the deforestations are caused. It is true that wood from the forestry is needed for manufacturing various types of goods required for development, but at the same time, efforts should be made to make up the loss of trees cut down from the forest. So it is very true that we need wood from the tree for manufacturing various types of goods, furnitures for our development. But in the same time, we have to think about the loss of the forest, and we can replace it by doing something like by planting trees and all. This can be done by planting sapling in the forest in place of cut down trees. So how can we replace it? By planting trees instead of cutting down planting of plants. Okay. It should be noted that the destruction of forests affects not just the availability of the forest product, but also the quality of the soil and sources of water. So it is already, we know that the destruction of forest not only caused deforestation and all, it's also caused the effect in the life forms which are present in the forest and also the quality of the soil. A major program called silviculture has been started to replenish the forest by growing more trees and plants. Thus, silviculture is a major program started to replenish depleting forest. The silviculture program has many advantages. What are their advantages? Let's see. It produces a large quantity of raw materials for industry. So silviculture produces a large quantity of raw materials for industry like timber, paper, etc. Okay. It increases the area of earth under forest, which is good for the conservation of wildlife. So it increases the area of earth under the forest. It maintains a perfect water cycle in nature, and it's also maintains a perfect water cycle in the nature. It prevents soil erosion. It's helped to prevent the soil erosion. It's prevent floods also. Okay. Now, there are certain people called activists who are not dependent on the forest in any way, but who want forest and wildlife to be conserved to prevent undue damage to the environment. So activists are what? They are not completely dependent on the forest, but they want the forest and wildlife to be conserved without any damage to the environment. They started by working for the conservation of large wild animals such as tiger, lion, elephant and rhinos, but they now recognize the need to preserve forest as well. This is because without preserving forest, we cannot conserve wildlife. So the activists who are willing to conserve the wildlife, they want to conserve the wildlife, but now they are involved in preserving the forest also. Why? They knows that without the forest, how the wildlife will be survive. Wildlife will be not possible to be maintained. We will now give two instances where ordinary people have played a great role in the conservation of forest by preventing them from being cut down indiscriminately. So here we are going to have learn about two incidents where the local people came out from their houses and tried to save the forest. Okay. So one, the case of Khajuri trees. The case of Khajuri trees. Okay. There is a Bishnoi community in Rajasthan state of our country for whom conservation of forest and wildlife has been a religious belief. In 1731, Amrita Devi Bishnoi led a group of 363 persons who sacrificed their lives for the protection of Khajuri trees in Khajurali village near Jodhpur in Rajasthan. This shows the determination of some people to work for the conservation of their natural environment. The government has recently instituted an Amrita Devi Bishnoi National Award for Wildlife Conservation in the memory of Amrita Devi Bishnoi. Okay, so in the Khajurali village near the Jodhpur, Rajasthan, the people under the guidance of one lady, that is Amrita Devi Bishnoi. So she guided the 363 people who sacrificed their life for the protection of the Khajuri trees, one type of tree. There it is present in the Jodhpur Khajurali village. So they are sacrificing their life to protect their trees. So recently the government announced the Amrita Devi Bishnoi National Award for Wildlife Conservation, okay, in the memory of Amrita Devi Bishnoi. Next one is the Chipko Andolan. Another example of the contribution of common people towards the conservation of forest is the Chipko Andolan, Hug the Trees movement. Okay, the Chipko Andolan originated from an incident in a remote village called Reni in Garhwal, high up in Himalayas in the early 1970s. A logging contractor had been allowed to cut down trees in a forest close to a village. The people of the village did not want this forest to be cut down because it would have spoiled their healthy environment. One day, when the folk of the village were out for work, the contractor workers came in the forest to cut down the trees. In the absence of man, the women of the village reached the forest quickly and collapsed the tree trunk with their arms, preventing the worker from cutting down the trees. The forest trees were thus saved. The Chipko movement quickly spread across the communities and helped in the conservation of forest. So that is the Chipko Andolan. What happened? It is a village, Rani, in the Garhwal. It is in the Himalayan region. So that in that village, what forest is there? Some contractor, they want to cut down the forest for industrial purpose. Then one day they came when the village men are not present at home. They went for their work. That time they came to cut down the trees. Then what the women are doing? They quickly came out from the home and they are from their arms. They are hugging all the women. They hug the trees and they are protecting the trees. They say to the people, if you want to cut the trees, then you have to first kill us. Then only you can able to cut the trees. So like that they say, and they save the trees of that particular forest. So that is called the Chipko Andolan. Okay. Participation of local people in the management of forest. People's participation in the management of forest can help in increasing forest produce as well as in their conservation. So participation of local people, they are helping so much to increase the forest protection work. Okay. An example of how local people's participation in the management of forests led to the revival of degraded forest is like this. In 1972, the West Bengal Forest Department formulated a novel scheme to revive the degraded self forest by involving the local people. A beginning was made in the Arabari forest range of Midnapur district. A far-sighted forest officer, A.K. Banerjee, involved the villagers of the area around the forest in the protection of 1272 hectares of badly degraded self forest. In return for help in protecting the forest, the villagers were given employment in both silviculture and harvesting. Operation of the forest 25% of the final harvest produce and were allowed to collect firewood and fodder from the forest area on a nominal payment. With the active and willing participation of local people living around the forest, the degraded self forest of Arabari become thick and green within 10 years. This is how participation of local people can lead to efficient management of forest. So that Arabari forest was a self forest, was a bare, the trees and things are not there, it is degraded. So that manager encouraged the people, local people of that particular area to work in that forest area, and after the 10 years all the local people are doing work there, harvesting, planting, everything they are doing there. After the 10 years, that self forest, which is a barren forest, are become a evergreen forest. Conservation of wildlife. The large-scale poaching, killing of wild animals residing in the forest by men is a serious threat to the survival of many animals and bird species. This also disturbs the food chain in which these animals occur, resulting in undesirable consequences for the whole ecosystem. This point will become more clear from the following example. Okay, so conservation of wildlife is required. Look, in the large scale poaching, killing of the wild animals and in the forest by men is a serious threat to the survival of many animals and birds, because it disturbs the ecosystem of the environment. What will happen? All these things are related to each other. All the animals are interdependent, you can say interdependent or related to the each other organisms which are present in a particular area. But if some animals will be killed by some people, then the ecosystem of that particular area will be disturbed. Okay, here some example are given. By looking reading that example, these things will be more clear. Snake is a wild animal. The skin of snake is a great demand for making fancy leather goods. So the snake sell at a high price in the market. Sell at a high price in the market. Now, to make some easy money, some people kill the snake indiscriminately in large numbers to obtain their skin. This large-scale killing of snakes disrupt the food chain in which snakes occur and creates an imbalance in nature. For example, snake is a friend of the farmer in the sense that it eats vermins like rat and mice, which are pest and damage the crops. Now, when the snakes are killed in large numbers to obtain their skin, the population of snake is reduced greatly. Now, due to the lesser number of predator snake, the population of pests like rat and mice in crops will increases. The increased number of rat and mice in the field damage the standing crops, leading to loss in the production of food grains. Understood now? What is the relationship there? Snake used to eat the frogs and mice which are present in the field, farming field, okay, and they can protect the crops from them, because that mice and rat used to damage the crops. If snakes are killed in the large number, their population will be decreased. So, and the population of the rat and mice will be increased. Why? Because predator is not there. Okay, that's why. And it will damage the field again, crops of that particular field. It is very important to conserve wildlife to maintain the ecological balance in nature and to preserve the gene pool. Some of the measures or steps to be taken for the conservation of wildlife are given below. Number 1. Laws should be made to impose a total ban on poaching or capturing of any animals or bird belonging to an endangered species. The poaching of an endangered species of animals and birds should be made a punishable offence. Such laws should not remain on paper only. They should be enforced strictly. Even if some types of wild animals and birds are in abundance today, their indiscriminate killing should not be allowed by the forest authorities. The natural habitats of wild animals and birds should be preserved by establishing national parks and sanctuaries throughout the country. The government department connected with the conservation of wildlife should conduct a periodic survey in all the forests, national parks and sanctuaries to have a knowledge of the population of all species of wild animals and birds, so that these animals can be helped in the times of distress like flood and famines. Special attention should be paid to the conservation of endangered species of wild animals and birds to prevent their extinction altogether. The unauthorized felling of forestry for timber trade and fuel wood should be curbed immediately. This is because depletion of forests destroy the natural habitat of wild animals and birds and exposes them to the cruelty of man as well as nature. In the case of government authorized felling of forest trees, for every acre of forest cut down, an equal area of land should be planted with sapling of trees to make up for the loss in the long run. So student, this much for today's class. In the next class, we will continue our lesson, that is lesson 16, management of natural resources. So before finishing my video, here are some few home assignment questions for you. Please write down the answer and send me in WhatsApp group. Thank you and have a nice day.